These are the most disturbing accounts on Instagram, arranged in the form of an iceberg. We'll start with the strange and unsettling, but as the video goes on, each layer will get darker until we reach the truly horrific. Viewer discretion is highly advised. Level 1. Mugre Kuin. One of the strangest Instagram pages ever seen was an account called Mugre Kuin. Everything looked like those old PlayStation horror games where the shapes are low and rough, and the faces almost look alive but never quite right, making the air around the screen feel uneasy. The first post seemed harmless, showing a dull-colored figure standing still, eyes locked forward, until another strange figure reached out to pat its head, making its face turn red with something that looked like shame. It felt strange but still calm, like the quiet before something terrible.
Music licensing.
After that, the account changed, becoming something that pulled deeper into the dark. In one post, a tiny figure played with a Ouija board and brought out the devil like it was a small game played on a slow afternoon. Another showed that same figure sitting on a skeleton's lap, unmoving, almost peaceful but not right, the kind of image that stays too long in the mind. Then came the series that turned everything darker, where sweet cartoon ponies were torn and broken, faces split open, and blood ran down where smiles should have been. One was impaled on sharp spikes. Another showed one trying to crawl away, though half of its body was gone. And the last was nothing but a shape falling apart as its brain spilled out and the skin melted away. After that, the tone shifted again, showing drawings that looked more like anime but still carried that same old game horror feeling, quiet and wrong in ways that could not be explained. Some were jokes, some were strange, but all of them felt cursed. The most known post showed a man-like shape called Curly, sitting across from the viewer at a table, smiling too wide, with the words "date" with Curly written below. He asked in a soft voice if the viewer liked cake, but when he lifted what looked like a glass, it was filled with bleach instead. His voice was calm, almost kind, but something about the way he spoke felt broken, as if he was trying to sound human but did not understand how people really talk. Curly's smile never faded, and his words never matched his eyes, and that made him far more frightening than any monster. He seemed almost sweet, yet something about him said that being alone with him would never end well. People joked in the comments, saying they would accept the cake just to see what happened, while others said Curly looked like someone who would never take no for an answer. Every new post showed him in stranger places, doing strange things, and the feeling was always the same, a mix of childlike calm and quiet horror that pulled people back to watch again. That mix of innocence and fear, of humor and sickness, was what made the account unforgettable, and why so many could not stop looking even when they wanted to turn away. Where is everybody? During the long and silent days of the lockdown, an account appeared on Instagram that caught the attention of many people who were trapped in their homes, hungry for something to make sense of the stillness. It was called Where is Everybody? And it belonged to a man named Alexander Nealon, though very little was known about him at first. The account looked like an ordinary photography page, filled with empty streets and quiet landscapes that fit the strange mood of that time, when cities stood still and life had slowed to a whisper. But something about it felt off, something in the air between the images and the words below them, as if there was more than emptiness hiding in those pictures. Every photo and video came with a caption that told small pieces of a story, one that grew darker with each post. Alexander spoke of creatures he called them, shadowy beings he said had taken over the world and left him as the last human still alive. The captions hinted at fear, loneliness, and the sense that whatever had happened was far beyond human control. To make the story feel real, he began uploading videos showing empty highways and silent cities where not a single person moved. In one clip, he poured salt along a sidewalk, saying it would keep them away, and in another he drove through a wide, empty freeway, the world around him dead quiet. As the posts continued, the story grew more intense. He filmed himself driving through a muddy road with shaking hands, his voice tense, the caption saying only they are everywhere. In another video, he showed a small room where he had fallen asleep, and in the morning there was a bowl of rice placed by the door and a chair facing his bed, as though something had been sitting there all night, watching. It was quiet horror told through still images, a world that looked real but could never be confirmed. His followers became part of the act, filling the comments with messages wishing him safety, telling him to keep moving, and praying he would find other survivors. Whether they believed the story or simply wanted to play along, no one could tell for sure. What started as a photography page had turned into something else, something that felt halfway between a dream and a nightmare, where a man wandered through a hollow world, asking the question that echoed inside every viewer's mind during those empty months. Where is everybody? Lily Jean. Lily Jean was a beauty influencer who, at first glance, seemed like any other online creator sharing makeup tutorials and glamorous photos. Her page looked polished and professional, filled with bright colors and perfect lighting, and her follower count, which stood at over 1 million, made her seem like a rising star. But the deeper anyone looked, the stranger her world became, because behind all the filters and glitter there was something that didn't quite add up. For someone with more than 1 million followers, her posts were almost silent. There were no real comments, no waves of admiration or conversation, just a quiet that felt unnatural. Her older posts had no likes or activity at all, while the newer ones were filled with the same repeated phrases, posted by what looked like rows of identical accounts that spoke like machines. It turned out that almost everything about her online fame had been built out of fake followers and automated engagement, an empire made out of numbers and nothing more. What could have been a harmless attempt at looking famous soon turned into something darker. Lily Jean and her mother, who helped manage her, didn't just buy followers, they built an entire illusion around her life. They photoshopped pictures to make it seem like she attended high-profile events, even faking magazine appearances and pretending to belong to a world she had never entered. And when people began to notice the truth, the story twisted further. Instead of admitting to the deception, Lily Jean and her mother created fake fan accounts, pretending to be loyal followers defending her from criticism. These accounts were poorly made, sometimes using offensive stereotypes, and only made things worse. When online investigators began exposing the lies, the two reacted with anger.
Mom, Lore, was actually the one threatening and blackmailing me by saying, hey, yeah, we'll release a claim on your video as long as you agree to no longer talk about Lily Jean or only say positive things about us.
They started doxing critics, posting private information, sending threats, and launching what felt like personal attacks on anyone who questioned them. What had started as an attempt to fake fame quickly began to resemble a psychological thriller, where the need to control the story became more important than the truth itself. Level 3. Instagram Confessions. The Instagram Confessions accounts began as something small and almost innocent, a space where people could share their secrets, crushes, or hidden thoughts without showing their names. For a while, it felt harmless, even comforting, like a digital diary that belonged to everyone at once. Students used them to post small admissions, quiet jokes, or kind messages to their classmates. But as the trend grew, something darker began to seep in. The same anonymity that made people feel safe also removed every sense of accountability, turning what had once been playful into something cruel. On these pages, the line between truth and lies vanished. Anyone could say anything about anyone else, and there was no way to prove or disprove a single word. What started as confessions of love or regret soon became filled with rumors, insults, and threats. Names began to appear, and with them came accusations of cheating, of crimes, of secrets that could destroy someone's life. Behind the curtain of anonymity, empathy disappeared, and the confessions turned into weapons. In schools, these accounts became especially dangerous. Students would wake up to find their names written beside things they had never done, stories they had never told, and rumors that spread faster than the truth could catch them. For some, the damage was deep and lasting. Bullying grew worse, reputations shattered, and mental scars began to form. What was meant to be a place for expression had become a trap where cruelty hid behind faceless words.
Artlist.io.
The scariest part was that some of the posts went beyond gossip. Among the endless flood of confessions were messages describing real crimes, violent acts, and even killings, written in the same tone as someone admitting to a crush. It was impossible to tell which ones were true
Music
and which were
licensing
lies, and that
reimagined.
uncertainty made everything more chilling. In the end, the Instagram confessions accounts became a reflection of what happens when freedom and anonymity mix without restraint. They showed how easily the internet can take something meant to connect people and twist it into something that isolates and harms. Behind every faceless message was a person, and behind every secret, a consequence that could never be
Artlist.io.
taken back. Holidays and Happily Ever Afters. The account. Holidays and Happily Ever Afters belong to Meenakshi Murthy and Vishnu Viswana, two travelers who filled their days with movement and their page with the soft colors of faraway places. But behind those beautiful pictures lay the shadow of what would soon become their final story. In October of 2018, the couple set out on another journey, this time to Yosemite National Park. They climbed to a high point known as Taft Point, a ledge with no railing and a wide open view of the valley below. It was there that something went wrong, and they fell almost 800 feet to their deaths. Their bodies were later found at the bottom, the air still and quiet, the sound of the wind brushing the rocks where they had once stood.
Artlist.io.
What makes their story even more haunting is a post Meenakshi had written not long before. In it, she sat on the edge of the Grand Canyon and asked, "Is our life worth just one photo?" The words were meant as a reflection, gentle and thoughtful, but after the tragedy they became something different,
Music licensing
something heavy,
reimagined.
almost prophetic. The rest of her message was full of light and warmth, yet that single question now echoes through time like a warning no one wanted to hear. The account remains online, untouched and unaged, its pictures frozen in the last moments before the fall. For some, it brings comfort to see their happiness preserved, but for others it feels like looking through a window into a life that ended too soon. What began as a celebration of adventure now stands as a quiet memorial, a reminder of how quickly joy can turn to sorrow, and how even in a digital world, a single photograph can hold the final heartbeat of a story. Level 4. Blood Heaven. Unlike other accounts that play with dreamlike fear or quiet unease, Blood Heaven lives entirely in the realm of the flesh, where pain and worship seem to blend into the same language. Every post is a carefully made image, painted and shaped to look unreal, yet sickeningly close to something that could exist. The scenes it shows are not
Artlist.io.
photographs, but they carry the weight of reality, as if someone had taken pieces of nightmares and given them form. Its feed is filled with cursed images, each one stitched together from fragments of religion and horror, showing saint figures smeared with blood and symbols that seem to whisper old, forbidden names.
Music licensing
Crosses hang upside
reimagined.
down, halos drip red, and beneath them is a single word written as the caption, Heaven. That same word appears again and again throughout the account, carved into skin, painted across walls, and written in blood-red letters. In one post, it is tattooed on two foreheads, staring directly into the camera, their eyes empty and calm. In another, a person is stabbed through the
Artlist.io.
chest by a long blade, the caption once again whispering heaven, as if it were a prayer spoken in reverse. The art itself moves between beauty and horror, with soft lighting that almost resembles old paintings of angels and saints, except everything sacred has been turned inside out. Wings are broken, halos are rusted, and the faces of the divine are stretched into screams. The colors are warm, but the feeling is cold, a strange mix of worship and disgust. Then, scattered between the images, there are words, messages that seem to come from something aware. One of them says, "What's missing? Why are you here? Stop living through your phone. It's your turn to talk." The lines feel too personal, as if the voice behind them is watching the reader and waiting for an answer.
Artlist.io.
Level 5. Bon Skinny. Bon Skinny's story began like many others on the internet, with simple dance videos that seemed playful and strange but harmless at first. Her face was always hidden behind a mask, white and stiff, with the words "I like sweets" carved
Music
across it,
licensing
and her hair was bright
reimagined.
red, like something drawn out of a fever dream. The mask gave her a look that sat somewhere between a child's toy and a nightmare, but her dances were soft and repetitive, movements that seemed almost innocent. For a while, that was all she posted. Just those short clips of her moving to music in rooms that looked a little too quiet.
Oh, please don't go. Bunny, bunny, bunny,
Artlist.io.
you're so funny with your twitching nose.
Then something changed. Bon Skinny announced that she had moved in with a man she called Mr. Man, and from that moment her videos began to fall apart. The bright light of her earlier clips was gone, replaced with dim rooms filled with garbage, stains, and shadows that moved behind her. The dances turned wild and broken, interrupted by flashes of her screaming words that were hard to understand, but sounded like "help me and let me out." Sometimes she stood still for long stretches, staring at the camera while shaking, her voice trembling like someone on the edge of panic. In other clips, she shouted strange phrases, her tone switching between laughter and fury,
Artlist.io.
as if something inside her was fighting to get out.
When can I go home? Can I go home today?
Not today, sweetheart.
People online did not know what to think.
Music
Some said it was an art
reimagined.
project or an elaborate ARG, a kind of performance meant to confuse and frighten. Others were certain it was real, that something terrible was happening to her, and they begged her to call for help or contact the police. The comments became their own form of chaos, half of them pretending it was all fiction, the other half screaming for someone to intervene. The line between entertainment and danger
Artlist.io.
disappeared completely. No one has ever confirmed what really happened to Bon Skinny. Over the years, new accounts have appeared under her name, each stranger than the last, filled with the same masked figure moving in dim light, always with that mix of beauty and decay. Some people believe she was an artist playing a long and disturbing game, while others think the truth was far more tragic. Her story now exists in the uneasy space between performance and reality, a reminder of how easily horror can slip through the cracks of a screen, and how sometimes what begins as a show can start to feel far too real. Celeste Mano. Celeste Mano's Instagram was the kind of page that felt
Artlist.io.
warm and real, filled with smiles, friends, and small moments that showed a normal and peaceful life. There were no signs of fame or attention-seeking, just pictures of a young woman living quietly, posting memories like millions of others do each day. But even something so
Music
simple and
licensing
kind became the
reimagined.
center of something cruel, because behind the soft glow of her pictures was a man who had turned his fixation into obsession. Celeste worked at a call center, and it was there that she met Luisako. Their contact had been brief, nothing more than a passing interaction, something she probably forgot within hours. But for him, it became something else entirely, a seed that grew into an unhealthy attachment. Over time, he began to follow her online, leaving messages, comments, and long notes that she never answered. When she blocked him, he made new accounts. When she ignored him, he found new ways to reach her. His messages grew stranger, darker, and filled with anger that seemed to come from nowhere. What began as attention turned into surveillance, as though every post she made was being studied by someone she could not see.
And for the next 6 months, it just got worse. Seiko was seen parked outside her work. He started following her and figured out where she lived.
Then, one night, everything changed. Celeste posted a picture with her
Artlist.io.
boyfriend, a small and happy photo that should have meant nothing to anyone outside her circle. But for her stalker, it was too much. It was the breaking point. He went to her home, broke through her bedroom window, and attacked her while she slept. Celeste never had the chance to
Music
wake up,
licensing
never had the chance to
reimagined.
understand what was happening. The attack ended her life before help could come.
Outside, security footage shows Seiko fleeing in his car. As the paramedics arrive, inside, Aggie is desperately fighting to save her daughter's life.
Her Instagram still exists, but it is private now, frozen in the same place where she left it, a quiet monument to what she
Artlist.io.
once shared so freely. Her family has spent years fighting for stronger laws against stalking, demanding that online threats be treated with the seriousness they deserve. The man who killed her is in prison, but that punishment cannot bring her back, nor can it heal the silence she left behind. Level 6. Kat Torres. Kat Torres was the kind of influencer who seemed to have everything. Her feed was filled with golden light, calm beaches, and polished words about healing and spiritual freedom. She called herself a guide, a mentor, and a model for a better kind of life. Every post looked perfect, her face peaceful, her tone soft, and her words full of promises that sounded almost holy. To the people who followed her, she seemed untouchable, like someone who had discovered a secret to happiness that she was willing to share. But the truth behind that perfection was something far darker.
Miss Caieiras. Cati Torres, 1,73 m, 88 centímetros de quadril.
Torres was not selling peace or wisdom. She was selling lies. Behind her dreamlike posts was a network of exploitation built on manipulation and fear. She used her charm and beauty to lure young women from Brazil, telling them she could help them move to the United States, build their own brands, and live the same life she showed online. She spoke of wealth, freedom, and success, and they believed her because she looked like proof that it could be real. But when they arrived, the dream turned to horror.
Você é capaz de perdoar a si mesmo? Lembre-se disso. Lembre-se não só de dizer que se ama, mas de realmente mostrar com a...
The women who trusted her found themselves trapped. Torres took their passports, their phones, and their money. She told them they owed her for travel and training, and that if they refused to work, they would be hurt or killed. They were forced into situations they could not escape, made to earn money that Torres kept for herself. What she called a wellness program became a system of control, where fear replaced faith and obedience replaced choice. Her Instagram was the perfect disguise. It looked pure and inspiring, a page filled with light and kindness, but in truth it was the bait that caught her victims. For years she hid behind it, using the illusion of beauty to cover the reality of pain. When the victims began to speak, the stories came one after another, each one describing the same pattern of control and cruelty.
You're gonna lay on the floor in this position like this with your hands here where we can see them. Lay on the floor. Letizia, film my body, my body, my body.
Kat Torres was finally arrested after years of abuse, charged with trafficking, fraud, and coercion. She is now serving an 8-year sentence, but the damage she caused cannot be measured in time. Her case stands as one of the most chilling examples of how social media can become a mask for real-world horror, and how the image of a perfect life can hide the darkest kind of truth. Bianca Devins. Bianca Devins was only 17 when her life was taken, a young girl from Utica, New York, who had built a small online world for herself. Her pages on Instagram and Tumblr were filled with dark art, soft colors, and quiet reflections about her struggles with mental health. She wasn't famous in the way the internet defines fame, but she had a voice, and people listened. She wrote honestly, and that honesty drew others in, people who felt the same and saw her as someone real.
And then around 13, Bianca started showing signs of depression.
But in 2019, the space she had created, the same online world that had once brought her comfort, became the place where her story ended in one of the most horrifying crimes ever to unfold across social media. Bianca had been friends with a man named Brandon Andrew Clark. They had met online and spent time together, attending concerts and sharing interests. To her, he was just a friend, but to him, she was something more, something he believed he owned. In July of 2019, they went to a concert in New York City along with another friend, and sometime during that night, Bianca was seen kissing another man. That moment, small and innocent, was enough to set off Clark's jealousy.
Then D'Amelio says Brandon asked Bianca about that kiss she had with Alex, the other young man at the concert the night before.
During the drive back home, the tension turned violent. He argued, accused, and raged until finally, in a fit of blind obsession, he killed her with a knife. What made this tragedy even more unbearable was what came after. Clark took pictures of Bianca's body and posted them online, turning her final moments into something for others to consume. He shared them on Discord with a message that read, "Sorry, you're going to have to find somebody else to orbit." The pictures spread faster than anyone could stop them, shared by strangers, reposted for shock or attention, stripping away her dignity even after death.
We see him grab the knife.
Music licensing reimagined.
She does not see it coming.
For Bianca's family and friends, it was a nightmare that would not end. Every time one image was taken down, another appeared somewhere else. Social media platforms were flooded with her name, her photos, and cruel jokes made by people who had never known her. It was as if the internet had turned her death into content, another story to scroll through, instead of a life that had been brutally stolen.
I was 10 minutes away. She had just been able to get out of that car. He caught her completely off guard.
The case shocked the world and forced people to face the dark side of the online culture that rewards attention above empathy. Bianca's family fought back by pushing for Bianca's Law, a proposed legislation meant to make social media companies act faster to remove violent content. They wanted no other family to suffer the same way, to see the memory of their loved one turned into a spectacle. Bianca's Instagram remains online as a memorial, its posts now frozen in time. The pictures show her smiling, living, dreaming, unaware of what was coming. Brandon Clark was arrested at the scene after trying and failing to take his own life. He was later sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Bianca's death was not only the story of a crime, but also of how the internet, a place meant for connection, became a stage for cruelty. Her life was quiet and creative, but her death became a mirror showing what happens when obsession, violence, and technology collide, and when a tragedy meant to be mourned is turned instead into something to be watched. Level 7. Obdulia Sanchez. Obdulia Sanchez's story is one of the darkest examples of what happens when the need for attention and the loss of awareness collide on social media. In the summer of 2017, she was 18 and living in Stockton, California. Like many teenagers, she used Instagram to share her life in real time, filming herself, her friends, and whatever caught her attention. But on one July afternoon, that need to broadcast turned deadly. Obdulia was behind the wheel of a car, driving her sister Jacqueline and a friend down a quiet stretch of road. The music was loud, the laughter was constant, and her phone was pointed at her face. She was streaming live. At first, it looked like nothing more than a group of young girls enjoying themselves, but the more you watched, the clearer it became that something was wrong. Obdulia was visibly intoxicated. Her eyes were unfocused, her hands unsteady, and the car was moving too fast. Neither of them was wearing a seatbelt, and she kept switching her gaze between the road and her phone. Then, in an instant, the music stopped. The car swerved, tore through a fence, and rolled over. Both passengers were thrown from the vehicle. Jacqueline, her younger sister, died on impact. What made the tragedy unbearable was what happened next. The phone never stopped recording.
The CHP says 2 14-year-old girls were in the back seat, not wearing seatbelts.
The live stream continued as Obdulia stumbled out of the wreck, blood on her face and dust in the air, staring at the phone as if she were still performing. Her sister's body lay motionless beside the wreck, and Obdulia looked into the camera and said, almost calmly, "I killed my sister. I know I'm going to jail." She spoke with the strange detachment of someone who could not yet understand what she had done, her words blurring between guilt, confusion, and shock. The entire aftermath unfolded in real time for her followers to see.
Kill my sister, okay? I know I'm going to jail for life, all right? I understand that. This is the last thing I wanted to happen, okay?
The video spread across the internet within hours. People were horrified not only by the crash, but by her behavior, the way she seemed disconnected from reality even as she stood beside her sister's body. The stream became evidence, and Obdulia was arrested and charged with gross vehicular manslaughter and driving under the influence. She was sentenced to over 6 years in prison but served just a little more than 1 before being released early. The story did not end there. Not long after regaining her freedom, Obdulia was arrested again, this time after another high-speed chase with a loaded gun found in her car. It was as if the lesson had never taken root, as if the same recklessness that destroyed her sister's life continued to follow her. The case of Obdulia Sanchez is remembered not only for the tragedy of that night, but for what it revealed about the dark side of social media, the way a camera can make people forget reality, the way tragedy becomes spectacle, and how easily empathy can vanish when the screen turns something horrific into just another stream to watch.